All right, third time's a charm. Let's see. Let's hope it's sorted everything out by now. So let's try this one more time. I've got my friend Andy on the line in a minute. He's going to be joining me tonight, and I'll just get into the story basically. Hopefully by then it's all sorted. Here he comes. Okay.
Yo,
Well, I can hear you just fine now.
beautiful.
No feedback loops. Good. All right. So let's just jump in. So, what was it? A few days ago, um, I'm posting up on the Bitcoin prices, which I do every so often. And of course, it's gone from 50,000 to 60,000 or something like that. And someone said, "Hey, can you help me invest?" And it's like, well, yeah, we can. We're not financial advisors. You know, disclaimer, disclaimer. Um, but I've been in the space for a few years now studying, and I know when you study something, Andy, you're an avid student. You research the hell out of everything. So one of the concerns we had was that because of all the information out there, people may get confused or misled or whatever, and just wanted to sort of share some things about it so people can make an educated decision when they decide to take the risks to get involved if they're going to, um, rather than just listen to the hype. Because one thing that you've probably seen as well, Andy, is that um, everyone's pushing their agenda based on what their position is in the market. And so one of the things that I've realized is that and you, I mean, you started off with the notes you sent me today about Bitcoin obituaries that they've
Yeah,
tried to
that's a
suppress.
website. Have you seen the website?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Okay, so yeah, Bitcoin Obituaries, that's a website that tracks every time the media, or you can go in and log an article every time the media has done a report basically
Hmm.
saying um, Bitcoin's dead, it's not coming back, this is it, it's all over,
Yep.
this thing's a sham.
Yep.
And yeah, I think the latest check there was like 450 separate articles, and these are articles in, reputable um, publications, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's like people have got their sort of idea around what this is, and the longevity of it, and so far they've all been wrong. So um, it's funny. I thought one thing that was interesting, and I sent you this little quote as well, just to sort of maybe frame like this conversation. It's like
Hmm.
people. This is sort of now like in the zeitgeist, right? Like the word Bitcoin
Yeah.
and cryptocurrency, and now it's like more and more. And as what people will find that if they're paying attention right now, as we start to get into a place where the market is about to pick up again,
Hmm.
everybody starts talking about it again, and it's it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's even more in the news, and it starts getting covered in mainstream media, and everyone's talking about it, and the soccer moms are talking about it, and it becomes everywhere. But the
Hmm.
reality is that a lot of people don't know what it is, and the reality is,
Hmm.
and when I was thinking about this earlier, as we kind of made a couple notes about things to discuss. The reality is most people just don't know about money at all, right?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it runs their life. It's the thing that they spend most of their time either worrying about, thinking about, or trying to get it. And most people really actually don't know what money is. And they also mostly don't know anything about technology. And what Bitcoin really is for most people is everything you don't know about money and everything you don't know about technology combined together. So for most of the people though, like, a
Yeah.
couple of the people that were posting in your group, kind of when you make that post and it's showing these big increases that are happening, people's ears perk up. And that could be for a number of reasons. It could be curiosity, it could be greed. They go, I want me some of that. And the reality is it's something that's happening. It's happened. It's the internet of money. It's either get on board and get to understand it as much as you can now, or be left behind, or miss out on great opportunity. And another thing maybe that I'll just frame with that I thought was pretty interesting, and then we can kind of riff on a few different bits, but I was starting to, in preparation for this, just have a look back at what it looks like over time when people invest, because I'm sure a lot of people, what they hear about, probably people watching, would go, oh, I heard about a friend who invested in Bitcoin and lost a whole bunch of money, right? Probably because they did what most people do, is buy when the market is at its absolute highest, and when it starts to go down, which it inevitably is going to as it goes through its cycles, is they get scared and they go, well, I'm going to sell now. Where the reality is, if people know what they're looking at, know what they're investing in, have a strategy, then they can avoid this from happening. And I just thought an interesting thing was this. I was actually met with my personal trainer a few days ago, and I see her twice a week, and I pay her $55 a session. And I said, hey, I should start paying you in Bitcoin, right? Because part of what we'll get to later when we discuss is, the different things that make something money, right? What makes something money? And one of those is a wide adoption. People all need to agree that this has value. And rather than it just being a speculative asset that we're investing in it and playing the market, we really need more people to start using it, not just so our investments go up, but so that we all get to experience the freedom of our own, being in control of our own financial situation, and not leaving our, wealth up to the big banks to decide whether we become wealthy or not. So during this conversation, I said to her, hey, what about if you're just putting that money in your savings, you're losing money, because inflation and saving your money in banks, what you're essentially doing is giving your money to the banks to go and invest it so they can make money, right?
Yep.
So I said, look, and it was funny because initially she kind of had this like kind of shock of like, because sometimes people hear this about, hear Bitcoin and they're scared, they don't understand it, and they think it's some kind of a scam. And I said, well, no, look, I can help you and show you a few different things about how to store it safely, and et cetera, et cetera. And then it was funny, in preparation for this, us chatting, I started to do some calculations about the price of Bitcoin over time. And I sent her a text. I said, oh, by the way, just so you know, because I've been training with her for about a year, I said, just so you know, if you had taken the amount I paid you every week and invested that into Bitcoin every Friday over the last 12 months, the $7,000 I would have paid you would have turned into, I forget the calculation now, like 19,000 or whatever it was. It was about a $9,500 increase. And she said, oh, wow, okay. And I said, and actually, if we had started training a year before, and you had been put $110 into Bitcoin every week and not touched it, right? This isn't playing the markets and speculating and playing ups and downs. This is buying Bitcoin, sitting and holding
Put it in and hold it. Yeah.
I said, if we had been doing that for 2 years, well, right today you'd have $347,000. in your bank account. So that kind of, I think, if we start with that sort of gets people, makes their ears perk up, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It's definitely requires a reframe to approach this whole subject through. Um, you know, how far back do we want to go? Like,
well, so look, I have a couple notes here, and just one of the things that I guess to sort of frame it, you go, look, there is a pretty big shift kind of happening. Where you had like, what year was it? Yeah, back in 2017, the CEO of JP Morgan, he spoke out globally saying, Bitcoin, bad investment, don't do this, da 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 da, because obviously these traditional institutions
they
didn't
don't want you to
necessarily
go
want
put
people
you.
to move away
Yeah,
from banks and get wealthy, and
no, of
it's their
course not.
game, and they don't want you in their sandbox, right?
That's
And
right.
so for example, what he said versus what JP Morgan is doing now, which is buying heavily into Bitcoin and investing a lot of their customers finance because their customers demanded it, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
then you take like Warren Buffett, who was um, you know, really the best investor of all time. He has constantly said Bitcoin is a mirage.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he hasn't been wrong a lot, but the few times he's been wrong, he's been very wrong, right? And he is like an 87-year-old man or something. So we're not necessarily expecting him to be at the forefront of like the digital revolution of money, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, when you look at people like, Richard Branson, we're on Facebook right now. The two guys that were there at the beginning
Hmm.
with
The Winklevosses.
the Winklevoss brothers, they were the
Yeah,
first two
they're
to become
heavy into Bitcoin.
billionaires off of
Yeah,
Bitcoin. Um, I mean, Elon Musk, right? We
yeah,
like the transformational forward thinking entrepreneurs realize that digital currency is the future. Um,
100%.
so yeah, and another thing I want, like maybe just to sort of frame for people that do want to get into this and be interested and take control of their own finances and understand money.
Hmm.
Like I said, if people don't understand money and then to try and understand Bitcoin, this can be a big challenge. So what some people may do is start to look at, there's two really good books that I would suggest anyone that's starting to look in this space kind of looks at. There's a book called Fake by Robert Kiyosaki. He was the Rich Dad Poor Dad. He has a great book that kind of talks about the mindset of money and understanding money, and um, the difference between being a saver, right, your whole life, which
Hmm.
is just another word for sucker, and being either an entrepreneur or investor and taking control of, your wealth, create your own wealth creation. And the other is a great book called The Bitcoin Standard, and that's for anyone that wants to really kind of, because today obviously we're just going to have a sort of a brief conversation, but it's going to be incredibly hard to try and really cover exactly what it is. And I think there's no point of us getting into really technical stuff about blockchains. And yeah, great book, Fake. Yeah. So one of the things that I thought what might be good to
Hmm.
kind of to kind of put a little foundation is um, kind of to discuss like what money is and the beginning of money, and just to kind of lead into digital money, because if we kind of start at digital money, that can be a little bit hard to kind of jump in with, because one of the biggest things that people yeah one of the biggest things I think people have a hard time struggling with is going, well, how does this have value? Right? What is the value of it? What is it backed by? Right? So, when we really think about how, money started, it really, like the evolution of money really, really started with commodities, right? People trading I've got a
stuff.
cow and you've got rice, and I want to trade a cow for rice. And in certain types of sort of tribal societies and trading societies, that kind of worked. But when it didn't work is if you had rice and I had a cow and you didn't want my cow, right? And I said, but I want your rice. And you go, but I don't want a cow right
What
now,
am I going to
right?
do with the cow? Yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I don't need a cow. I got
Yeah,
cows.
I
I
don't
got
need a
plenty of
cow. I
cows.
got
So,
cows. I
so,
got lots of
so, so,
cows. Yeah.
so, this is where debt began, right? So this is where you said, well, I don't want your cow now, but I'll give you the rice, and later, um, you can give me the cow at a later time,
Hmm.
right? Um, and then really the we transitioned from that to then these like objects like stones or tulips or shells that people people traded, and then eventually moved to like precious metals, gold,
Hmm.
copper, silver, and then eventually to that stuff being stored in a bank and us
Hmm.
trading pieces of paper that represented our holdings in a bank, right? And then moving from that to um, paper money that at one point was backed by gold, and
Hmm.
really now, I like to say now it's backed by men with guns, right? In in the 1970s, the um, the U.S. dollar was no longer backed by gold and became backed by people's
Men with
trust in the
guns.
U.S., and that amounts to their military, really.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and then from there, we transitioned to credit cards, which took 50 years, right,
hmm.
for people to adopt. And really, from there, let me just check the year. Yeah, you know, really it was like the dot-com boom, right? That then people started to go, okay, we're in a global society. I want to purchase things online. And in the beginning, it wasn't, you couldn't necessarily use your credit card online. And I don't know about the age of everyone watching or in your group, but like most people know about eBay. And I remember when eBay first started because I was a record collector and I'm buying records on eBay where you would basically, the product would be on there. You would message back and forth with the person. And in the beginning of eBay, you would send either a money order or cash, right? I remember sending cash in the mail or going
Wow.
to the post office and buying a money order, putting it
Hmm.
in an envelope. And then in the very beginning of eBay, it was then sending a couple of dollars to eBay for
Hmm.
them processing, allowing that transaction to happen, right?
Mm,
There wasn't credit cards, there was none of that. And then it was the PayPal revolution, right?
hmm.
PayPal came, and
Yep.
pre-PayPal, there were all of these different people that tried to do digital money, digital cash. PayPal came in and wiped that out because then we could have a peer-to-peer transaction using our credit card or our bank account, um, and essentially, send money across the world with a fee, right? So
Hmm.
come 2009, Bitcoin, right? The Bitcoin revolution, the start of the cryptocurrency revolution. So that was just the natural progression of it. Um, so I thought, yeah, might be just sort of helpful to kind of give us that's how we've got here
Yep.
now.
Yep.
Um,
From
did you have any kind of input on that or thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I remember, when Bitcoin first came on the scene, and there were a few of those underground documentaries. Almost, I think they're on Netflix now, or you can find them on the web if you dig deep enough. But um, this is still on DVD
Mm.
while you're still going to Blockbuster and you know and pirating, downloading. movies off the internet, through Napster and all that sort of stuff. And the idea, people were buying pizzas with 2 Bitcoin. Do you remember that story? You heard that
Yeah,
story?
that's my favorite story. So maybe
Yeah.
what we do is we yeah, kind of lead into that one through like the fact that, yeah, 2000, like maybe like how Bitcoin sort of started. So
Mm.
2009, Satoshi Nakamoto, which is no one really knows. It's either a
Who?
person, it's a group of people, could be a country, could be a government, who knows? But either way, he basically put out a protocol of 30,000 lines of code, um, that kind of solved the digital money problem, because pre
Mm.
up to that, DigiCash and Beans and these few different companies that were trying to do digital cash hadn't solved the problem of double pay, right?
Hmm.
So the good thing about cash money is if I go into a cafe and I pay a $10 note, I can't spend that $10 note at another time. Now, DigiCash and these guys in the beginning didn't solve that problem. It took Satoshi Nakamoto and his technology to come, and the blockchain technology, which essentially is a decentralized ledger. So a ledger like when you go into a bank and the money goes in, money goes out, and they keep a track of all of your transactions. Well, what the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain is a decentralized ledger where all of the different nodes, which is all of the different computers that are around the world that are mining and creating the Bitcoin, and anyone using Bitcoin can clearly see on this decentralized ledger every
Hmm.
transaction that's happened,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the technology has allowed or has disallowed double pay. So it allows the
Yeah.
one transaction to happen, and then it's going to block any other transactions from happening. So in the very, very beginning, like you said, when people were trying to go, when the people who understood economics and technology first saw this, they went, "Wow, this is amazing! This is revolutionary! This
Yep.
thing's going to change the world." Because
Yep.
one of the things that I think we could lead into the $20 pizzas with is like what constitutes something being money, okay? And there's a really great quote from Milton Friedman, and he's an economist, and he says, "Unquestioned belief and agreement that something has value." Okay,
Yep.
if that belief dissipates, so does the value of that thing. So for
Yep.
something to be money, it needs four things. It needs to be a store of value. It needs to
Hmm.
be a symbol of value. So, for example, a block of gold, we have to collectively agree that that block of gold has X value at this time. It has to be widely accepted, right? It has to have adoption either across a whole country, across a number of countries, or it has to be tied to the price of the currency in those countries. It has to be transportable, which is one of the reasons that, for example, cows weren't a great form of money past the bartering age, because it's very hard to transport them. And even gold, it's incredibly hard to transport large amounts of money safely. And then
Yes.
the other thing is that it needed to have a form of limited supply. Okay, so
Hmm.
those are basically your four things that make something money, right? Without those, it can't really be classified that way. And uh, before we talk about how many possible bitcoins there are, and so when people compare, well, what about the dollar? What's it backed by, et cetera, et cetera? And you talk about the U.S. dollar. What some people might not be familiar with is that 25% of all of the U.S. dollars that were ever created were created since the coronavirus.
Hmm.
So there isn't a
Say that
limited.
again.
Okay,
Sorry, say that again.
so 25% of all
20,
the
that's a
U.S.
quarter.
a quarter of
That's
all the
one
U.S.
fourth.
Okay, a quarter of all the U.S. dollars that have ever been were created since the beginning of the coronavirus.
Mm.
Okay,
That's why you see all these memes of the Fed printing money, and yeah, it's like,
so
okay, where's the?
which should be incredibly shocking to anyone, and this is
It's
why
shocking.
this is why the buying power of U.S. dollars or all dollars gets less and less over time.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation, right?
Yep.
And the buying power of that money goes down dramatically. So here's
That's
one that
why
you'll
people are paying triple the price in timber to finish off the houses they started a year ago. Yeah, to get the
exactly.
same amount of materials, it's costing them a
So
lot more.
one little fact I love as well, right? You if you take monopoly money, okay,
Mm-hmm.
monopoly money from the first edition of Monopoly that's ever come out is now worth more. That monopoly money, that paper money
Mm-hmm.
inside, is now worth more than the American dollar, right?
Because there's less of it around.
Because the because when you because when you paid $3 for
Mm.
Milton Bradley's Monopoly in whatever it was, 1920.
To buy it again
To
today,
buy it now, if you go on eBay and you try and buy
the
Monopoly,
exact
yeah,
same one. Yeah.
exact same one, going to cost you like $600 or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
when you cost up the what you can buy with $1 now
Mm-hmm.
versus that money, it's a joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
so one of the very important parts of the why Bitcoin is so kind of revolutionary, and now people more and more every day getting on. Now all the institutional investors and everyone are coming on board is that there will only ever be 21 million. That
21
was built
million Bitcoin. Yeah.
21 million Bitcoin. That was what was built in
That's it.
to the code, and then it's done,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we know that scarcity creates value. So if we have just an unlimited supply of money being printed in these countries, well, that's only going to go down, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is why now we're seeing all of these institutions as inflation goes up, as even now the price of gold is starting to drop for the first time this year.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's worth 13% less than the cost of the US dollar. So this is why it's important to probably become interested in this, if you care about money. And I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
I do.
I was one of those people who was like, money's not important. And then, I went through the starving artist phase where I couldn't afford rent, and I couldn't, feed myself properly for the whole week. And I was getting really thin. And it was like, well, I'm not, at the moment, I wasn't like chasing money, but I realized the value of having it. It's like, it's better to have and not need than to need and not have, as they say.
Yeah, and look, I know there's, just from following your group and seeing posts, like a lot of sort of spiritually minded
Mm-hmm.
people, and I understand that because I'm the same way, but it
Can
does.
I just say, Andy, most people don't know, but you're a monk, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
is it qualified, anointed? What's the term?
ordained. Yeah,
Ordained. You're an
yeah,
ordained monk. You're an actual
yeah,
monk.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
So,
real.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
See,
so
that's pretty spiritual, and
yeah,
you're into
yeah.
Bitcoin as
It's
well.
sort of important to me, but that's because somebody has to be in a position that when there's a beggar on the street or when there's someone that needs help to be in the position to do that, right? Like we can't
Mm,
all completely just disregard the monetary system because whether we like it or not, it allows us. It's energy, right?
mm,
It's energy that allows us to help our families, our communities, and the more we have, the more we can help.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, if you're making all this money and it's not really your thing, then you can give it all away. You can give it to people. There was a great story about a guy who was born into wealth, and um, it was by Roald Dahl. It was called It'll Come to Me, but he got all fed up with the mainstream of the rich lifestyle, and he started throwing his money in the street and caused a riot. The police came, and he says, well, it's my money, I can throw it away if I want to. He says, you're an absolute fool. He said, there's an orphanage down the road. They need blankets, they need food, kids need to be educated, they need clothes and shoes. Give your money to them if you're not happy living in all that wealth. Don't just cause damage with it. Do something useful with it.
Well, and maybe what because that's sort of a good lead into the little project that I wanted to kind of talk to you about as well, around because what people start to see when they start to look into, not just because right now we're sort of just talking about Bitcoin, because I think it's a good introduction to maybe more ongoing discussions we can have about the wider cryptocurrency revolution and the different sorts of projects that are happening across the now thousands of different coins and projects. So really Bitcoin is sort of the one, it's the original, it's the, it's sort of the perfect version, but it's also not very high tech. It's just a very simple decentralized ledger that doesn't do a whole lot else except the things that we discussed, like be a store of value, have scarcity, and basically be a symbol, something that can represent value, right? But when we start to look at the wider industry and the thousands of projects, if people do take the time to kind of dive into this, you just realize, wow, this is where all of the most amazing technology and the most fascinating aspects of the financial world and new financial instruments and things being created. So for example, a big thing, and maybe we can have a whole other conversation about this another day, but is like decentralized finance, where we basically become our own bank. We control our own. We control our own assets and we hold them. So for example, this is a bank. This is my bank, right? And we can the crypto that we own, we can, for example, do what normal traditional banks do and lend that out, right? Yep. And make interest on that.
Yeah.
While still holding on to it and still keeping possession of it. So versus the embarrassment of when you get your statement back from the bank and you see that you've made $1 in what do you call it, interest. You make $1 in interest over the year, versus where you can, there's certain coins and on certain platforms where now you can be getting a 9% return, right?
Yeah.
Which is better than most traditional methods of putting your money somewhere. Even if you had a piece of property that you were making 7% interest on over the year, that would be considered to be a great investment, right? So these financial instruments and these projects are already changing the world up beneath our feet, and it's just like, do we want to know about it, and do we want to start to put some attention on it, or just let the world go by, right? But one of the things that I'm getting super passionate about, or that I was very interested in the space from the beginning, is NFTs.
NFTs.
Are you, do you
Non-fungible
maybe want to,
tokens.
do you want to maybe give a little
Well, I mean,
of your
I only know a
understanding of
little,
it, or
yeah,
what?
my understanding of it so far. So our friend Sam, because we have conversations like this as well, Sam and I, and he sent me this link of NFTs. I'm like, what's an NFT? And so non-fungible token. And it turns out, basically, I guess the easiest way to look at it is it's digital art that you own. And so say I don't know, I paint a picture of this, or this is a photograph. I take a snapshot. That's the digital piece of artwork, for example, and that can be turned into an NFT with its own what's the word? Its own hash code, and that becomes the original of that piece of art. Now, people can take copies of that and they can have copies of it on their phone or wherever, but they'll never have the original. And I guess where the future of NFTs will be like any kind of artwork, whether it's paintings or movies or music or anything, is that you own the rights to that. So I would
Yeah,
imagine.
and it's not necessarily even the rights to it, because we, like with NFTs, like they can be used in a lot of different ways. And
Mm,
I'm always fascinated right in the beginning when people say, well, because if anyone's interested in this, like look up, there's a project called CryptoPunks.
mm-hmm.
And these are these tiny little JPEG
Yeah, yeah.
images of little characters, and there's a series of them. And some of these little JPEGs are selling for millions of dollars, $7 million, $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
People say, well, why would you? Well, but I can log on and look at that same picture right now for free,
Yep,
right?
yep.
But I can go and log on and look at the picture of a Picasso for free as well. So why is
Mm-hmm.
someone going to pay $350 million for a Picasso? Well, because collectively we sort of agree that he's a great artist, and what people gain from interacting with these pieces of artwork, if we're looking at the artwork side of it, can be invaluable to them, right?
Mm.
I think back to my father, who was a baseball, hockey card, basketball card collector, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes a Michael Jordan rookie card worth $100,000? It's a piece of cardboard, right, with a picture on it, right?
Mm.
Why? Well, because it was created by this creator at that time, and it's a symbol, and so the value that we put into these, any piece of art, you could say it about a Van Gogh. You say, well, it's really just a bunch of paint and a canvas, and it's not worth anything, right? The value of it outside of it being that piece of artwork isn't, there's no value to it, You could turn it into firewood,
Mm-hmm.
if you get desperate. But so this, like, people need to sort of shift their mindset and also realize that. Oh, and by the way, to go back to NFT, non-fungible token, the definition of that, a fungible token is like anything
Mm.
where you can have two of them that have the same value. So a $1 coin is a fungible token because a $1 coin has the equal value to another $1 coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or €1 or $1 versus a non-fungible token, which is non-fungible. There isn't another thing like it that is equal in value, so
It's unique.
it's unique, right?
Mm.
So kind of, where what I like to do is think like way into the future, right? That's already happened and we're just moving towards it now. It is, for example, they're saying now that in 4 years from now we're all going to have Google
Mm-hmm. Google
glasses.
Glass.
It is going to
Yep.
be really extremely common. right?
Yep.
So for example, instead of me simply having um, an NFT in my digital wallet, right, which I can open and look at or look at online, it may be that you and I, when we walk around, is that I might have a piece of artwork that that sits that sits behind me, right, like this,
Yeah.
like as we walk through the world, right?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the perceived value of it, well, it could be that there's one particular artist that someone says, oh, that's an original of XYZ artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of possibilities with these and this space is it's kind of as far as your imagination can go, which would bring me to a project that I'll tell you about, which is that when I discovered it, I thought was fascinating. Okay, because when I started looking into the um, NFTs and what NFT projects were going on out there, because I thought this is going to be massive, right? Like if it's fun and it's interesting, but also there's probably going to be the potential to earn because, by the way, there's NFTs selling for hundreds of millions of dollars now by famous artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across this coin. It was called the AXS coin, and I read just really quickly about it, and I went, oh, it's a it's a NFT game. It's a gaming NFT thing, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I just put a bit of money on buying some of the the crypto that's attached to that project, and without really kind of looking too much into it, um, which I don't recommend, by the way. Look into all your projects, do your due diligence, find the team, find out what it's all about. But this, I kind of just went,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have a feeling about that. I'll chuck some on. And then over about 6 weeks, it went up 10 times in value. Okay. And I went, oh, this is interesting. I better have a closer look at what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out, so it's actually this game called Axie Infinity. Okay. Now, the way this game works is it's a bit like Pokemon, all right, where you have a team. If you and I were to play against each other in this game, I would have my team of three of these Axies, right, which are little Pokemon sort of creatures, and you have your three, and we battle out in this arena, okay? And it's a bit like I'm not a gamer, but when I'm looking at it, I'm okay, I kind of get it. You have each character has these different cards that get played throughout the game. So it's a bit like reminding me of the game like Magic the Gathering. So if you think of like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon sort of like mixed together, this is sort of the game, and it's this almost game of chess that gamers will play back and forth using these NFTs. So I start looking into it and I go, wow, this is crazy. And the NFTs that you need to play range in value from like on the marketplace between, $300 and as much as you want to spend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's rare ones and whatever. So just to give you an idea on the economics around this, in the last 7 days there was $35 million worth of these NFTs purchased on this marketplace. In the last 30 days, sorry, that's the last 24 hours. The last 30 days, 1,083,321,474 worth. So it's caught on, right? There's people playing this. So I'm looking at it
Mm-hmm.
going, wow, this is fascinating. Immediately I want to know
Involved.
more and look more and
Mm.
be involved, but I'm not a gamer. I don't want to sit there and learn how to play this game and figure it out and then my life become like playing away. Oh, because the other part of it is that all the battles in the game, you can win cryptocurrency by
Right.
playing the game, right?
Yeah.
Which you can remove from the game, put on an exchange, sell it for US dollar or whatever currency you like. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at about the average, there was people that playing the game could make about, say, $50 US per day, right, for playing this game. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, well, this is interesting. I'm like, so now a gamer, so because you hear about these people who just are playing games for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. Oh shit, they can actually make a bit of money. Sure, it's not enough to survive, right? Because it's $50 an hour, it's 50 US dollars a day. And then I kind of went, well, actually, in some parts of the world, that's a lot of money. That's a significant amount of money. But obviously, the barrier to entry into the game is the fact that you probably need about 1,500 US dollars to get your team set up to start to play, right? But then as I looked a little bit deeper into it, I realized, oh, what you can actually do is I can set up an account and I can take my characters, which I own, and I can put an account for Brett. And I can say, Brett, here, you go play these for me, and you can earn this income from playing it, right? So I was like, this was just started to blow my mind. I went, wait a second, this is crazy, I'm like, this is something. Then I found this documentary online. It was a 20-minute little documentary about these people in the Philippines who got Westerners generally to sponsor them to play the game. And this really made a massive difference to these whole communities in the Philippines who are all there playing this game, Axie Infinity. So to make a long story short, or a long one long, I'm gonna go and find someone that's an expert in this, and we're gonna do this, So I end up finding this young man, 22-year-old guy in the Philippines, John, who is an expert on the game. He'd been playing for someone else for the last year and a half. He's a hardcore gamer, knows the game inside and out and how it works. And there's whole parts of the game. You're breeding Axies. You take 2 of the NFTs, you mint a new one, and it's just this whole world. So I find this guy who has an ad posted online basically saying, I'm an expert on this game and I'm looking for someone to invest in me and change communities, because if he basically knows how to start a infinite breeding loop with an initial investment of about $10,000, which is a life-changing amount of money for someone in the Philippines. But he said, we can create an infinite breeding loop of these characters and bring people on to play with these teams and basically earn what is a very good wage in a country that's been ravaged by COVID. His story is he wakes up at, or previously was waking up at 4 a.m., take a 3-hour journey, get into a cubicle, do 12 hours of data entry, get back on 4 hours of public transport, go home and try and look after his 2-year-old child for a bit, okay? For $6 US a day. For $6 US per day, right? And him and everyone like this now have the opportunity to play these scholarships and be earning, some of them, for example, kind of a pretty good, like, if without too much sort of know-how, and with a little bit of training and playing, an average one can make like $46 US a day. Okay, that's a life change. That's a much different, and that's playing a game they love versus,
and saving all those hours in travel.
12 hours of data entry, and being like a sponsor of it, you go, well, I have these assets, right? These NFTs that have value, that can be resold on a marketplace, can be bred and created more. And, so you see these mind-blowing projects that are using this technology, right? That is way beyond just simply being like a store of value or a speculative asset that, you're watching charts go up and down and basically like gambling on it, right? It's like this whole world of people dive in and start to look into what's going on out there. This stuff is going to revolutionize and change every industry,
Yeah, I
anything
think
around entertainment.
yeah, for sure. Like I think a good illustration for people to see where the future is going with this, because it's, for just try and see where it is now and where it's going to go. It's sort of like trying to put your head through this tiny little hole and then the funnel opens up. But Steven Spielberg released a movie a few years back called Ready Player One. I
I
don't know
heard
if you
about
saw
that.
it.
I didn't see it, but
So that's a
yeah.
perfect example of a future, where that kind of thing is, it's not just this idea that it's cool and maybe people can, earn a bit of money out of it. It's like, no, the whole world was immersed in this world. And inside that world, you need currency. Inside that world, you need objects, tools, devices, and they're all made up of code, right? And so if you wanted that tool to get you into that game that was going to get you that, windfall, then you needed the NFT, right? And so to do that, there was all these challenges in the game to get you there, so you could do that, right? So yeah, Ready Player One was a great illustration of how that would look, and
Mm.
it's kind of interesting because right at the start he introduces the character and the world and says, people said our generation was the vanished generation, or the one that disappeared. He said because people started spending more time in the oasis, which was the virtual world, and people didn't go outside anymore, right? And what's happening right now? We're all being trained to stay inside. What happens
Mm.
when you can't go outside? You go online, right? You go
Mm.
online, you go on YouTube, you go on social media, you start to
You
get deeper into
you
it.
you you
You
end you
pay,
end
and
up you end up getting into Axie Infinity and having a team of dudes playing in the Philippines. None of that would have ever happened for me if it was
well,
for COVID. And even and
exactly.
even and even to go back to our kind of like original, the original conversation around Bitcoin, it's like,
Mm,
I was lucky to be told about Bitcoin at when it was like in the few dollars
hmm
stage by a guy who was working for me at the time, and I was like, "You got to get into this, man. You gotta," and I didn't, right?
mm,
But I watched
yeah,
this like 20-year-old kid become a millionaire, right? Because he bought low, held on to it, sold high, sold. I think he sold out at like $3,500, right? And
wow,
was a
yeah,
millionaire at that point, right?
yeah,
And um, and then kind of, you know, because it kept coming up in my life and I kept hearing about it when it was at 7,000, I went, okay, I'm 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 in. I'm gonna just sort of put put some cash in and then not think about it and not look at it and
mm,
not worry about it
hmm
and not become obsessed
set and
with it
forget,
or go
yeah,
down the rabbit hole and be, you know, if I had have at that time been watching and paying attention and continuing the journey, I would be it would be a very different position right now. I still did very well at that, but I didn't really start paying attention again until that 7,000 turned into 85, You know what I mean? And I went,
Yeah.
okay, wait a second. This is something that I should probably be more focused on. And it was because of the, one of the reasons I sort of avoided for so long was I went, well, it's so uncertain, right? It's so
Mm.
uncertain. And I was building businesses, brick and mortar businesses
Yeah.
that were certain, right? Well, for example, my travel company, which was like, well, every day there's going to be a plane, there's going to be X amount of planes arrive into Australia, and the backpackers are going to get off, and this business is certain. This is a gold mine because they're just going to
Yeah.
keep coming and coming
Yeah.
and coming, and it
That's
ain't going
never
to
going to
end,
change. Yeah.
right? The world's never going to shut down,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But it was the world shutting down, forcing my hand to go. Wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to now really knowing that this is out here. I can't just close my eyes to it. I know that this is a transformative technology and it is solves a lot of the problems that we have with government and with um, our financial situations where we a lot of us who, if you're not in a good one, we tend to point to someone else out there. This is really the technology that allows people to become their own bank, stop relying on you know big banks and worrying about what's out of their control. And what it does take is a level of education, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know how much time we all have on our hands, and I see a lot of people who are spending a lot of time looking at whether it's conspiracy, one side of the conspiracy or the other, or pro this or anti that, and
Mm-hmm.
and they spend so much of their time online in these discussions and speculations about all of that. When you go, well, just so you know, this is all going on right here. And if you were to educate yourself, focus on something else, and if you truly hate the government and want to take them down and you think they're controlling and whatever, well, do something about it. Yeah.
Mm.
This is a solution. This is what you should be
Yeah.
doing. Educate
Yeah.
yourself in this space. And
Yeah.
it doesn't take a lot. I did a little calculation earlier, and if on the first of okay, well, couple of these are a couple of the interesting ones. So if someone was watching this conversation on the 1st of January in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, I'm just going to take $20 a week
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to buy Bitcoin,
Yep.
$20.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take $20 a week and I'm going to put it in. If you, by the way, if you don't, if $20 a week is a stretch for you, don't invest in anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and can we just say also, I don't know if everyone knows this, but just because Bitcoin's in Australia like $60,000 doesn't mean you need $60,000 to buy a Bitcoin. You can buy $20 worth of a Bitcoin, which is 0.000 point something, and that's your, you know, piece of
Satoshis. They're called
Satoshis. Yeah.
Satoshis. So, for example, if we had been having this conversation on the 1st of January 2015, and someone said,
Hmm.
yep, I can afford $20 a day, and I can go along on the ride and not worry about if it's up or down, or
Hmm.
and
Just leave it set and
I can
forget.
take my emotion out of it, and I can just go
Hmm.
$20 a week. If they did $20 a week on the 1st of January in 2015, today they would have $312,640
Hmm.
off of their $6,920 investment,
Investment. Yep. And that's
right?
without lending it and getting interest on it. Yeah.
That's with doing absolutely nothing with it, right?
Yeah.
And so this isn't, people think that they need to be that they need to understand exactly how it works or what it does. Well, you don't understand your phone or your computer, but you use it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the banking system, but you put your money in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, not that I'm telling anyone what to do, but except look into it, right?
Mm.
And educate yourself and take control of your financial your own
And,
financial freedom, right? And
and
your
you know,
own wealth
that
creation.
is, yeah, and that is the most basic of strategies. Like, I think we all, I remember when I was a kid in primary school, we had Dolomite account with Commonwealth Bank, and the Commonwealth Bank launched that campaign to get kids to invest, not because, okay, well, I don't know, maybe it was a substantial amount of money, kids saving their $3 a week or something, or $5 or $8 or 20 cents or whatever it was, all that little, nibbling on all those cents and dollars. I'm sure it was a lot to Commonwealth, but it was to train that generation to start using bank accounts
It was
and
it
to
was
go with
it was
Commonwealth.
it was to create long time customers. It was a
Long time. They
marketing
were
campaign
creating a market.
to train people to become savers, which is what the
Savers,
banks and
that's
the
right.
government want you to be, to put your
Yes.
money in their hands so
So
that
they
they
can
can
invest it.
control it and
Yeah.
they can invest it and they can become rich and have
Yes.
comfortable air conditioned offices and bougie jobs and careers. And yeah, so this is really, it was a created, this whole space was created to empower people, to give
Mm-hmm.
people financial freedom and control, right?
Yep.
So the most anti-government and the most um, ultra spiritual thing that we can all do is to put it in our own hands
Mm-hmm.
and make educated, informed decisions around it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I
Become
that's how I
responsible
see
for that
it.
area of life.
Yeah, and like I said, like this for me, this little project I'm working on now with these guys, this Axie Infinity thing, man, every day these kids messaging me going like, "You're changing our lives. Like this is incredible, right?" So it's like that's only through the power of this technology that I've gone, wow, this is incredible. Like fully now connected and having this, experience with this other person on the other side of the world that's like, you know, that's truly life changing. And that would have been really hard to do in a different economic structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's um yeah,
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's one of
I
the
think.
reasons I'm super passionate about this sort of space and this
Yeah.
area is what it can, how it can further human connection, and allow
Mm.
people to have opportunities to create wealth and then hopefully share that wealth and do, so many of us go, oh geez, I would do my big project or my life-changing project if I could, but I'm stuck working for the man.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So I think like all of us, and in saying it, the timing right now, we can't get into tonight why it's happening because there's a lot of different factors, but this whole market is about to go on a really big, you know, 46,000 USD for one Bitcoin today. We're probably looking at 250,000 by the end of the year.
That's a big call, but something is going to happen soon. The dam has to break eventually. Um, and I think I just want to, I've got to say this because I think it's important to give people an understanding of the size of the opportunity and why you can say it'll go to 250. Because that's a massive jump. People are like, well, how's that going to happen? I remember reading a book years ago by it was about J. Paul Getty, the oil baron, the oil guy in the States, of one of the first richest men in the world. And so he would buy up, all these leases and drill for oil, and he made all his money out of oil. And when he got really big, obviously there were all these competitors after 30 years of doing this. And he would start buying up all the little companies and start the monopoly process of, being this big oil tycoon. And what happens is, when you get to such a big scale, is that when you start to buy up other companies that are doing the same thing, your competitors start to pay attention. And if they don't do something about it, then they're next. They're going to get absorbed next. And if you're a little guy, you go, hey, well, that's great, because I'll just sell my little company for a huge increase, and I'll do something else. But if you're running neck and neck with J. Paul Getty, or just behind, there's a lot at stake, right? And so and what a lot of businesses will do, companies will do, is they'll list themselves on the public stock exchange to raise funds so they can grow bigger faster. And when that happens, you open yourself to your competitor buying up stock in your company and then owning a majority share, and then eventually basically owning your company. And it took him like, I think it was 15 years, with all these careful trading through shell companies and subsidiaries and offshore accounts and all that, to finally buy his competitor out and get the monopoly on the oil business. Right? It was a massive operation. And so if you look at the financial world as it is right now, and you look at the market caps of Bitcoin right now, I think we're $1.8 trillion of value in Bitcoin at the moment.
Which is nothing.
Which is nothing
compared to, for example, gold, which is about 11 trillion, I think.
11 trillion. I mean, Christmas time, there's about $3 or $4 billion spent over a 3 or 4 week period.
Yeah.
Right. On crap, on gifts, on TV screens.
Plastic junk.
Right. And so Bitcoin is at 1.8 trillion total.
Yeah.
And its value.
And and sorry, before you go on, sorry to interrupt you. I just got to say,
that's all right.
Part of the problem, right, is that people hear the stories about the guy who we never really got there, because I went on a rant like I do.
That's right.
But the guy that bought the first time that Bitcoin was used, when he basically put out on a message board that he wanted someone to deliver him 2 pizzas, and he was going to pay 10,000 Bitcoin. Right? The $320 million pizzas, right? I think is what that works out at in today's, or more. More than that, way more actually. My math is off. But so people hear stuff like that and they go, "Oh, I've missed the boat." No. I have this all the time with Alice, my wife, going, "Oh, it's too late. I've missed it." It's no. This is the beginning. This
is the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah. We're
just getting started.
Yeah, and when we look at all of the other things happening in the space, there's people making life-changing wealth all the time, but it's some out of luck, but mostly out of being educated. So sorry to interrupt, but as you said, it's.
So it's like the other thing I notice is people they're taking the wrong time frame with things, right? They're like, oh, I want to get in now, so when it goes up to 80,000, I can sell and I can make $20,000, right? It's like, if you did that, you would be selling the golden goose, right? Because where we're at right now is like being in computing back in the 80s, right? I think about that scene in Forrest Gump where, you know, him and Lieutenant Dan are the only boat out there during the typhoon, and it wipes out all the fishing boats. And of course, they've got, you know, they're the only one fishing now, so they get all the fish, right? And then so they build up this fleet, and then all of a sudden, Lieutenant Dan comes back and says, "I've invested in Apple," right? He says, "Oh, this fruit company, great. I guess we don't have to worry about money anymore." And that was like Apple back in, you know, when Apple had the colored logo, you know, when before it was even anything. And so if you had the opportunity to invest in Apple then and just hold till today, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious, you know, you don't have to really, it's a no-brainer. But coming back to what I was saying about J. Paul Getty, the banks have been, if you're the bank, right? If you're the banks and you've got trillions of dollars floating around the world daily, and you know, like you'd have to be stupid to ignore Bitcoin and go, okay, well, this is no problem. You'd have to be going, okay, this is a real threat to everything, the current structure. And if we do nothing, we're going to lose all of it. Inflation, people are going to move their money over. They're going to stop using banks. They're going to stop getting loans. Why would they? So all the money we have, we've got to do something with it. We have to eventually get in there. If they were all to just unleash, pull the trigger, and money would just start flooding in, the whole world would break, right? I remember when it went from up to 25 to 28,000 back 3, 4, 5 years ago, I think it was. Just when I got back from traveling overseas, there was this real tense feeling because it was everywhere, and the prices were going up and up and up. No one had ever seen this before. They were going, "What's going to happen? Like everyone was freaking out. No one knew what to make of it." So if suddenly $11 trillion of gold went into Bitcoin tomorrow, everyone would be like, "Oh my God, you know, here, take my money, just let me get on board somehow." Now that's a problem, because if you're not ready, you don't have your account set up, you're not on an exchange, you don't know how to do your transfers. When that starts happening, you're not going to be able to get on board, right? The train's going to leave without you. But the thing that I see when these coin prices are going up and then they bounce and they ping pong along for a while, and then maybe they go down a little bit for a while, for a few months, and then they go up again. In these times, these troughs, this is when everyone's getting position. This is when all these money's slowly, quietly being moved into the marketplace. And it's being put there to gain position. It's like getting ground in a war, right? A financial war. You're trying to gain ground. You want this position, you want that land, you get here and there. And then all of a sudden, when more value, more people start adopting it, then it goes up. You're already in position. And so that's what I see what's going on here.
Yeah, the people who are buying and have been buying over the last few months when the prices are down are people who've been around for a long time, and they're just accumulating. And it's more and more now institutional investors, hedge funds, they're all buying, getting as much of it as they can, just accumulating, right? And the people who are selling it, unfortunately, are the people who bought when it was really high, saw that there was a dip and went, "This is scary. I haven't got the mindset to deal with the ups and downs of this," and they don't understand the big picture of it, and they don't understand why it truly has value. It's only a speculative instrument for them. And they go, "Well, that didn't make me any money in the last 3 months, so I'm out," right? Versus educating themselves, being on a long-term journey. And to go back to, you know, what you were saying about, you know, just holding and buying and selling. There is the option to just buy and hold and not do anything with it, right? If you don't want to spend your time really educating yourself. But then also there's lots of opportunities to take profits out on the way up as well,
For
because
sure.
because what will happen is we will go up and then it will drop back down again, like it's done. We go through cycles. So one of the parts of the whole thing to understand about the Bitcoin and the way the mining works. So maybe just to touch on that, because we haven't really discussed that, but the Bitcoin mining essentially is a bit like if you compare it to gold, where we used shovels, and in the beginning, or in the very beginning of gold, you just had to do a little panning, because it was right under the surface. It hadn't been really started to get mined yet. And then you needed a
Yeah, yeah.
shovel, and then you need to go deeper and deeper and
It
deeper.
gets
And now with a
harder and
mining
harder to
operation,
mine.
it gets harder to mine over time. So the way that instead of a shovel, we use computers
Computers.
to mine Bitcoin. And essentially what they're doing is solving complicated algorithms. So it takes high power computers to solve these algorithms. And for solving them, the miners get rewarded with Bitcoin. Okay. Every 4 years, there's a halving, right? So I think in the beginning, there was 50 Bitcoin is what you would be paid out. And then I think I made a note earlier. 50 Bitcoins were rewarded to miners when it first started, and that's halved every 40 years, went to 25. So in 2020 and now it's 6.25 Bitcoins for this. So for the same work that was being done in 2009, instead of 50, 6.25. So this creates this is how the value changes over time. By 2140, it will all be mined.
There's no
It'll
more
be
after
done.
that.
By 2040, so what are we now? We're 2021. So in 20 years, 99% of it all will be mined and in circulation, right? So the next 20-year journey that we're on, remember, there's only 21 million of them, right?
I also heard that a bunch of disappeared like
well,
10
yeah.
years ago.
So people who have put them on hard drives and USBs and computers and wallets. We'll have another conversation another time about how to buy it when you want to and how to store it safely so that this doesn't happen to you, because people have purchased it and in landfills and old computers and garbage, they estimate it's somewhere around 3 million, right?
Or they just lost their keys.
Exactly.
Their
So
code
you go,
keys.
okay, so there's 19 million now, so there's like 16 million. Oh, and by the way, out of that, there's I think 2.5 million that is up for sale at the moment, that's on exchanges. The rest of that is being held in cold storage offline by people who've been holding for a long time because they understand what's happening, right? Because they've been around, they've seen it. So when you think about the fact that there's only 21 million of them, and I think right now there's 59 million millionaires, so there's not even enough for every millionaire on earth right now to have one. And the scarcity continues and the FOMO, the fear of missing out, goes on, that is part of what's causing the increase, and the institutions coming in, and the banks buying in, and the government. There was just a huge infrastructure bill in the US that was being debated all last week about all of this. And you know what we saw? That Bitcoin has a massive support from both sides of the aisle, right? People understand. It is a bit shocking, by the way, to see some of the questions being asked by the politicians in the US. It's like they've never logged into Facebook before. You know what I mean? Like the questions they're asking
Running the
about
country.
it, they just don't have don't have an understanding of it, right? So it's fascinating to see that, but then fascinating to see, because one of the things we didn't discuss was inflation. This is a hedge against inflation. We had
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason that in third world
That's
countries
the
you go,
elephant in the room.
yeah, there's a reason you go into a third world country and you can have $1 trillion bill, right? There's a reason that in countries like Argentina that have been ravaged by inflation and the value of their money has completely dissipated, that they've gone, wait a second, there's something out there, there's a solution here, right? So we've just had it become legal tender in a couple of countries.
Venezuela.
Venezuela, um, in Nigeria, something like 2/3 of people under the age of 30 have a Bitcoin wallet, right?
Wait
There's
till
2 billion,
Africa gets involved.
yeah, there's 2 billion people in the world that don't have access to banks,
Mm.
right? So we in the Western world and in Australia and America, like we get caught up in the investing side and we love our asset to increase in value and all that, but those countries, it's a solution to a real world problem, crypto in general, not just Bitcoin, but cryptocurrencies, and the fact that we can have a peer-to-peer transaction without any fees
Yep.
across the world,
And no
you know,
middleman. And no
no
middleman.
middleman. So, it's a fascinating time to be alive as usual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is it's there's no stopping it. Anyone who goes, it's a scam, it's a this, it's just numbers on a computer. I go, well, go have a really good investigation into what the US dollar is or what the Australian dollar. We're in Australia, so we've done a bunch of printing this year too, and we're going to be doing more of it. The more
Mm-hmm.
lockdowns and people don't realize inflation so much because they're just living, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I went down to Woolies and that bag of frozen raspberries I normally buy that's $4 is now 5.
Mm-hmm.
you know we don't see it happening, but this is just one of the things we can do to prepare ourselves for that.
Yeah, mitigate against that. And I've seen companies that are moving their treasury over to Bitcoin now as the standard, and then they're paying everything out of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency that they can, and only when they can't do it and they have to use cash, then they change it into cash. And some of these companies that are holding large amounts of Bitcoin are offering like they've got their own coins going, and they're offering massive interest rates for you to convert your Bitcoin into their coin.
Yeah.
So they'll take your Bitcoin and then they'll give you a huge, like a really good deal now, and give you cash back.
Yeah.
And they'll hold the Bitcoin. Here's your cash with a little bit, this is a really good deal for you right now. I'll
Yeah.
take that Bitcoin off you that has no
Sure.
value. It could be a scam. It could be this. It could be that. And in a few years, you'll have spent that cash, or maybe you'll have that cash still, but that cash won't be worth what it is today. But the Bitcoin that I take from you for that will be worth a hell of a lot more.
Well, we've done the calculations here, haven't we, on some of these, holding a little bit for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's kind of like a good sort of
It's a good,
foundational chat
yeah.
about like an intro into it. The amazing thing is that like Bitcoin's the most boring of all of the crypto world, really. But it should
Yeah.
be. Our money should be sound, hard, and boring. Shouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There shouldn't be surprises. You know what I mean? It should be simple, and it shouldn't have to have any bells and whistles or be fancy, right? But there's a lot of other stuff happening in this space it just blows your mind when you see the technology and how the world of finance and entertainment and everything is being affected by this.
Well, all that needs a solid foundation to be built and relied upon. And if we just look at technology, like my background, my first corporate job was in telecommunications, and we were selling Nokias and 2.1 cent per minute dial-up internet, right? And the next big thing was SMS. That was going to take over the world. And we were all laughing, going, why would you send a text message when you can just pick up the phone and talk to somebody?
Especially when you used to
how and the argument, I remember my boss, my team leader at the time, turned around and said, well, Vodafone last quarter, who just went into SMS, made some million, $1.4 million in a quarter. And we're like, whoa, that's crazy. That's like, McDonald's making 15% profit off. Would you like fries with that? It was just that little additive to the big telco machine. And now, like, I barely use SMS anymore. It's all Facebook, it's all WhatsApp, it's all, email. Do people even use email that much if it's not for legal stuff?
If you're paying for text messages now, you're doing it wrong.
Well, like I just upgraded my plan because I've got this internet issue in this area and I need more data, more bandwidth. And they're like, oh, we'll offer you all these calls. They're like, I don't even make phone calls anymore. It's all like when I remember watching we went to an event for Nokia and they had a vision of the future. And you know what it was? It was this right now. It was these rectangular devices that were flat. They didn't have any buttons on them. You talked to them. You had FaceTime going on. You could be on your bike and have a map of where you're going. You could book your flight. It was all like, wow, that's the future. That looks so cool. Can you imagine that? And here we are now. Finally, we've got the blockchain, which is, you can't fuck around with it. You can't forge things. Once it's there, and everybody can see it. So there's none of this, it's going to eliminate a lot of corruption too.
Yeah, and this is the thing to touch on that. Like, in the beginning, people thought, oh, that's what people are using on the dark web to like buy. It's like actually,
you don't want to buy anything illegal with Bitcoin because they know exactly where it's going.
Exactly. All of that was like government, like fear, and because the reality is it's all there. All the information's there. It's the most transparent of monetary systems that exist. Right? You can be pseudo-anonymous. That is one of the reasons that some people choose it, because you can have a wallet without having to give a bank every piece of detail about you, but your wallet address is public, and the transactions can be tracked. There was actually just not to scare anyone, but there was on the Ethereum network, which is another blockchain. There was one of the exchanges was hacked for 7 or 600 million or something, or I've done a huge amount in the last few days. But within a day, they're like, this is the person, this is who it is. It's like this person's details are out there, and they're going to go to jail for a very long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like what people don't say around all that security stuff is that there was a huge push to by formal education, I might add, like TAFE, for example, and the other universities for IT security specialists, right? It was massive back in the, you know, late noughties, to
Yeah.
2009, whatever it was, when Bitcoin was just sort of starting.
Yeah.
Um, there was a huge push for people to get into computer science, and now that's advanced like a lot too. So, I mean, Apple just is going to come out with something really big very soon about all the privacy stuff. It's pretty much going to have their own portal, own world inside the devices. Like
Mm.
there's a whole battle with Facebook and privacy and Apple going on right now. So,
Mm.
you know, it's becoming more and more safe and more regulations around all that. So I remember when, you know, used to people were like, "Oh, don't shop online. Don't put your credit card on the internet." Whoa, you know what? All that happened. Now you've credit cards all over the place. Who cares? As soon as there's a transaction that's out of character, you get notified. Boom, someone's spent my money.
Yeah.
Okay, block that. Guess what? They rewind the tape, recredit the money back. It all happens like that. Done. You're back on track.
Yeah.
You know. And so they're doing that now with the current financial structure as it is and infrastructure. And like you said, Bitcoin that's just the base. Like there's faster stuff coming out in the future, just like
The amount of projects, it's just mind blowing. And yeah, and then there's just more to come. We're just at the very beginning of this. This is, you know, it's a beautiful time to be to get involved, to educate yourself, right? For people to educate
yep,
themselves and to not, not. I think one of the beautiful things about it too is in the space. What you find is that people want to help other people. I don't even see like a lot of people just they want the magic bullet. They go, "Oh, will you just tell me what to do and when?" Right?
yep,
But what you find is most people would rather help educate someone than to go, "Well, cool, let me just manage your situation for you," right? Because it's a it's a digital revolution, right? So it's like,
yeah,
okay, how do we lift everybody up and get them to see what's happening and take ownership of it?
yeah. Take responsibility.
I was like reading this to touch back on the NFT stuff. Like I was reading a really cool article about someone who had paid some exorbitant amount for, a piece of digital artwork. And one of the things he said was, well, it's not just about owning that piece of artwork, it's about showing my commitment to this space and these artists. And it takes people to invest or to be at the forefront of it and to wave the flag, you know what I mean? And put
Mm,
their money where their mouth is to
blaze the
show that,
trail.
yeah. Um, just to touch on that as well, just around the art stuff with the NFTs, this is one of the fascinating parts that some people don't understand is, for example, if you're an artist and you mint your NFT, so you create an NFT, well, every time that changes hands between different people, you the original artist gets paid, the
Mm,
original creator,
royalty.
right? So they
Wow.
can set it so there's like a 10%, for example. So right
Hmm.
now, if you have an artist who's, most artists don't, they just get paid once for their piece of artwork.
Yeah.
And the more times it changes hands, the more it increases in value usually.
Hmm.
But they were just paid once when they were measly at the beginning of their career, probably. Um,
Yeah. You get loading like an actor would do on a movie. Yeah.
yeah. So now with the whole NFT thing is you go, well, that when you're buying a person's artwork, you're actually um,
Supporting that artist.
su supporting them. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, lots of really cool stuff happening. Anything else
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
we should touch
Um,
on or in this
well,
initial
I just thought,
convo?
now that we're sort of doing this, and I think we, like you mentioned, making this into kind of a series.
Yeah.
Um, I like this idea because I think the dynamics is good and the subject is fascinating, and we can talk about all sorts of things for
Ye-
hours until we're both
Yeah, we've been actually
cross-eyed.
what we've been chatting about doing this for ages, and I'm actually surprised that this is the um, first time we're doing it, and that this is the topic, right? Because
Yeah, I know. Out of
um,
every topic we could talk about,
out
this
of
is where we start.
meditation and transformation and spirituality
Hmm.
and all that stuff that we just riff on, and entrepreneurship and business and um, but look, this was spawned from someone in this community that
Hmm.
wanted help, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and it is a cool community that you've got. There's a lot of fascinating people. I always love when I see the comments and then looking at them and getting a feel for their life through their Facebook profile. It's a diverse group of people with some strong opinions and interesting opinions, and you got everyone from every side of the fence.
yeah,
Um, it's great. So we should definitely do more of these and
yes,
do more topics too. So
absolutely.
we can riff on crypto and whatever, but we should just turn it into, depending on, hey, we could be in lockdown here for a while.
Hey,
We don't
what
know.
else we got to do, right?
They're
Yeah,
aiming to get us out of here on Tuesday, but I would find that would
we'll
be very
see.
unlikely.
Yeah, I think, mate, let's make it a regular, and then maybe a regular time slot too, and then
Yeah,
we can let people know when we're going to be on so they can join in or make the time, and
yeah,
or they can hit the replay. Remember to like, react to this and comment and all that, so it spreads out through the group and beyond further. But you know, just touching on, you know, we don't. I think the other part of this conversation was because when that person said, can you help me? Can you invest for me? I was like, kind of almost cringe, like, no, I want you to learn about this so you don't need anyone to do this for you, right? You can participate in this. Um, because, yeah, okay, there's a lot of, um, I mean, now that we you mentioned Bitcoin and it comes up on your audio on your phone, probably going to get sponsored links to check this out and check that out and all these advertisements and stuff like that. You got to remember they're all like the bank. They want you to give them their money so they can go out and invest it, right? So why don't you just do that instead for yourself? There's plenty of, I mean, we didn't even get into exchanges or lending or anything like that, which you
yeah.
can do. It's really
I,
easy.
I think what we should do is do another call where we talk
Hmm.
about like A, how to buy it, how to store it safely, all
Yeah.
that. Maybe what we do is we jump on and actually do like a trend, like just show someone how easy it is.
Hmm.
We'll jump on with like a share screen if we can figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I got to
Buy
figure out
buy
how to do
something,
that.
and then I'll like send it to your wallet. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And then we go through the like process and you can show, okay, look, this is how
Well,
easy it is.
I mean, we could do that, but there are so many good tutorials already which we can link straight in, right? Maybe we can
Yeah,
talk about it and then give the right kind of information to go with what we're talking about. So
yeah.
we don't have to teach it either, because I'm not a guru of this, and not,
And
I don't want to
neither am
be.
I, nor am I.
And
Like
yeah,
yeah,
we're just guys on the internet, right?
yeah,
So there's plenty way smarter people in this
yeah,
space
yeah,
than you
yeah.
and
What
I.
I'll actually do, I have a massive list of people to follow on Twitter, podcasts to listen to, books,
Yeah, yeah,
And that's just what you got to do. But you got to just dive in and then go down the rabbit hole, right?
And maybe I give you moderator access or something to the group so you can flick up your links on there as well, or
Cool.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
But one thing, look, I guess, like, because I know there are people who are going to get value out of this, and they're going to like, oh, how do we, thanks for all this information. We're going to go off and invest and make money or get cryptocurrency now, but we want to give something back. It's like, well, there's a referral code in. I'll put referral codes in. I've been putting them there for the exchange. We get discounts off fees for everyone we refer. That's just a simple thing that's built into the exchange that you can also have access to when you're in the exchange. And of course, there's the online energetic arts merchandise. And I think I'm gonna, because how this got inspired, I think I'm gonna do a giveaway on some people who, have watched and left comments and maybe shared this link to their friends to grow the community. And we'll do some giveaways, and I'll definitely do a giveaway for the person that inspired this talk in the group. You'll get a t-shirt and a hat out of this. All you need to do is go onto the Energetic Arts online store and create an account. I'll know who you are, and once you got your address on there, then I'll just send you some merchandise. Done.
Hey, look at you.
You don't even have to do anything. All right.
So make sure you message her on there and let her know.
I will. Yeah, I'll message her, send her a link, and she just got some merchandise just for inspiring a really good topic.
Very cool.
Yeah, we'll continue this, and I think we'll do that with the merchandise for people who inspire good topics for us to talk about.
Yeah, well, people should, if they want if there's any other ones, tell them to post down there. Because we can riff for ages on most things.
Pretty much anything.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool, bro.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah, let's call it an evening.
Yeah, we've been going. Oh well, I don't even know how long we've been going. It's been a while, so we'll pick it up again in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. Peace to all of the cool people in your group. May all beings be well and happy.
Thanks very much, Andy. Thanks for being on here and for all your support over these last crazy few years. It's been a roller coaster. And thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. See you in the next video.